No, no, none of us were, I don't think. I mean, movies take 3 or 4 years to make from the time you start writing them to then. So no, I didn't know, and I don't think they knew about my projects either. Mine was just a small project that was sort of inching its way forward, and I couldn't get it. You know, after I took the article around, it took me 6 or 7 months going around the town and trying to sell this, and people just what they do in Hollywood is they just yes you to death. No one says no. They say, yes, we'd love to work with you. We hear Crash is terrific, and I really want to work with you. Let's set up some meetings. And the next people say, yes, that'd be great. And then just nothing happens. So after 7 or 8 months of that, I knew I didn't have enough clout to get this movie made. So I called Clint Eastwood, because I can do that now. Isn't that cool? I called Clint Eastwood. And I said, I'd like to send you a magazine article. I'd like you to read it. Thinking that he would call me and say, read it and say, you call me bastard, never talk to me again. And he read it and called me a couple days later and said, wow, that's really tough material. I said, yes, but I think it's the truth of what's happening to some of our men and women. He said, yeah, so I'll help you get it made. So he called over to the chairman of Warner Brothers and asked him to take it seriously. And so they did. They optioned the underlying rights and the life rights for me, and I was able to write it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And certainly I was sort of roundly condemned in some circles in America. I've been called Osama bin Laden's best friend and things like this. And these people are very serious. That was a tough decision to use it in the way I used it, because I really truly didn't want to insert my politics into it as much as I did want. I wanted to make a very political film, and I think I did make a political film. But I truly wanted it to be an emotional experience, not an intellectual one. I didn't want characters to be on stage just sort of making speeches about Bush and condemning this and condemning that. I wanted the idea that I like movies that sneak up on you. I like $1 Million Baby. I like them sneaking up on you. And this one, I imagine the experience of you sitting in the audience and relaxing, because you imagine it's just a murder mystery, and Tommy Lee Jones is going to solve everything for you, so you don't really have to worry. And then slowly getting the sensation of there's a sort of feeling a metal band around your chest. It's slowly tightening until you can't breathe at the end, and that's what I was going for. So I actually went back and forth about the ending quite a bit, and then I realized it wasn't my decision. It's what the character would do, and so I left it to the character. Yeah, it didn't work. No, people saw right through it. Yeah, didn't fool anyone. Tried, failed.
But had you thought about that going into it? Presumably, I mean, these were always going to be tough subjects, weren't they?
Yeah, and actually, where this film did best, and it didn't do well at all, but we're in America. But where it did best was in the Midwest and the South, exactly where I wanted it to do well. I wanted to place places where people, I like Tommy Lee Jones, and Charlize, she's pretty. I think I'll go see this, and it did. And those are the places where they're sending their young men and women to Iraq. We're not sending them from Los Angeles or New York or Philadelphia, the big cities. They're just not going from there. These are the children of the poor that are going. About halfway through this, I went searching for a story that Tommy would tell the boy, and I knew he read the Bible. I wasn't overly religious, but I knew he'd take solace at times like this. And I remember the story of David and Goliath when I was a boy, and how that was told to me. And then I thought about the way we tell these stories to our sons. We pass them on, and tell these stories of incredible bravery. Here's a boy who comes into a camp and fights a giant with the king's bravest and strongest and best armed warriors are too afraid to fight. The king won't fight himself. First of all, I thought, well, what kind of a king sends a boy to fight a giant? How corrupt. And then I thought, well, when we're told these stories, the effect they had on me, the same effect they had on my son, if I tell him these stories, or others, is you want to emulate that when you grow up. And that's what these kids do. They go to places like Iraq wanting to be the David, going there to fight the monster, to fight the giant. We've built this monster up in their heads to be huge. And we certainly built it up in America when we sent them over there. I asked myself, what happens when they get there and find out they're the Goliath? What would that do to them? And so that's why I placed this movie in the Valley of Elah. I knew I was making an American tragedy, and I wanted it to be an American film. And so I looked at the films of John Ford and others, and certainly The Searchers was a big one for me. It's a film I loved. And, certainly the latent racism that comes in The Searchers is also in this film. He knows what villains look like. They have dark skin, right? That's pretty much what we think. And so that's why I put the line in there. But wouldn't it be funny if the devil looked just like you? But I knew that I wanted to have these landscapes and to shoot it very classically, the camera to almost never move, until he started to lose control, and the camera then went out of control as well. And then only in the ending did the camera start to drift a little bit and show a little bit of freedom. I also did something which hopefully you didn't notice, or maybe you felt, is that in the beginning, the film is quite pristine. And then every time there's an emotional setback with him, I add grain to the film. And so that it's toward the point to get to the end, the grain is just about popping off that screen, but hopefully you won't notice, but you'll feel that it's I just want to fuck it up. I want you to feel like it was first of all, more of a documentary sense in some ways, but also a dirtier, more horrible feel. And so I took Roger's beautiful film and really messed it up. And only in the very end, after he sits when he sits in the coffee shop with Charlize, does that go back to the normal in the beginning. So, but yeah, hopefully those are the things you feel. I'm a cynical bastard, as you can tell by my films. And so I think it's going to be a very, very long strike, unfortunately. I think we're into the summer of next year.
And there seems to be no willingness by the studios to give in on anything at all, not even a relatively tiny payment on DVDs. They just won't do it.
No, when they, as you probably know, we get 4 cents on a DVD. Out of a $30 DVD, we get 4 cents, and we asked for 4 more, and they said that's outrageous. It'll bankrupt us. This is after making billions and billions. They said this with a straight face. It's really quite remarkable. And they said as far as the internet and any movies shown on the internet, any television shows shown on the internet, we should be happy getting absolutely nothing, and it doesn't make us overly happy. And they said, no, you should be happy. It's for promotional reasons. So they recently came up. I think this week they had a breakthrough, in which they announced quite publicly that we're going to be paid millions and millions of dollars. Should be very happy. Well, we would get millions of dollars over many hundreds of years, but the offer was, I think, $124 per movie buyout to the writer for a movie.